Hey, and welcome back. For people that know me really well, they can probably quickly tell you that I have a few hobbies that fill up most of my time. 1, drumming. 2, woodworking. 3, my dogs. And 4, supporting my beloved Green Bay Packers. Today I'm going to attempt to take all of these passions and put them into one project. I've been an avid follower of great drum builders on Instagram for a number of years, and one of my favorite builders to watch is Jefferson from Sugar Percussion. At one point in time, he posted this dog bed he made from a drum shell, and I thought it was the coolest thing I've seen. I went to his website and he actually has this listed, but the price is a little out of my budget. A while back, I picked up a set of real cheap drums for $25, and I've been sitting on a number of the pieces for a while. You may have seen a video on my channel where I made a nesting drum out of a floor tom, and that's from the same kit, and I plan to make more projects out of the other shells down the road. My first step in this project was obviously stripping off all the hardware from the shell. With the wrap in the condition it was in, and wanting to get a little more color out of this project, I opted to remove it. If you've ever removed a wrap from a shell like this, you'll learn 2 things. 1, the wrap is only adhered in maybe 1 or 2 spots, right at the seam of the wrap, and 2, they use a wrap for a reason. The wood ply underneath is not nearly as nice as the wood ply you'd find on any drum that is stained. After getting the wrap off, I used a countersink bit to drill out the backside of the air vent grommet before pounding it through with a screwdriver and hammer. Next up was trimming the shell down to its final depth. The bass drum was originally a 22-inch diameter by 16-inch deep. I'd obviously not need this much depth, so I opted to cut the shell down to a 6-inch depth. Although the next step looks like a really poor way to cut a bearing edge, it's not what I'm doing at all. Since I expect my pets to walk in and out of this, I just took my handheld router to cut a nice round over so no one gets caught on the shell going in and out from it. If you were cutting a bearing edge for a drum head to seat on, you'd need to do this on a router table to get an even, consistent edge. At this point, I also made the terrible mistake of taking off way too much on the first pass. Like I mentioned before, these outer plies are most likely some soft, thin plywood, like basswood, and the router bit ate it up right away. I was originally going to sand it out and try to make it work, but I quick just opted to cut over the leftover of the shell and repeat the process of rerouting the edges, this time in a much more conservative approach. The new cutoff from the shell had some extra holes that ran into the edge, so I opted to cut the rest of that segment out, sand, and file it down a bit. Next step up for me was painting the shell. If you have a small, lazy Susan wheel, this can make painting something circular like a drum shell much easier. In the spirit of not spending any money on this project, I decided to use this green spray paint I had on hand. It actually reminds me of a few drums I've seen on the Sugar Percussion site, along with my beloved Green Bay Packers. I did a couple of coats and then left this to dry until the next day to reassemble and wrap up this project.
The next day.
After a night's rest, I was able to start putting this drum back together, first by adding all the lugs back to the shell. Since I was trying to replicate the drum dog bed I saw online, I needed to add floor tom legs to get this drum off the ground a little bit. I actually had a set of 3 floor tom legs from a children's drum kit that were just about the right size that I got for free. I had 2 medium-sized holes in this shell from where the disappearing spurs used to be, and by just my luck, the holes were the exact size to fit the leg brackets from the children's drum set. The only downside is that the holes were not in a great position to support the drum up, so I re-drilled one of those holes. Since the kids' kit was missing the 3rd floor tom mount, I just found an extra bracket that would support the 3rd leg from my endless stock of old drum parts. Next up, I grabbed the hoop from this kit and gave it a good cleaning with some soapy water and paper towel. After that, I was ready to reassemble the head just like any other bass drum.
A little later.
Now, if you wanted to be an overachiever, you could buy some foam and cut it into the shape of the drum to be a perfect fit, but I opted to just throw a blanket in this bed and call it good. Once I got this thing set up, I realized the leg brackets I used from that children's drum set are a fairly poor design. It has way too much flexibility with twisting and turning with just a little bit of pressure. I tightened the bolt up fairly tight, but I didn't want to overdo it because the wood is fairly soft as is. With the standard floor tom bracket I used to supplement the missing one from the kids kit, it actually did alright because it's mounted off 2 points. The quickest solution for this was to just remove the legs and keep this drum on the floor. It looks fine that way, and now I don't have to worry about any of my dog's weight causing it to fall down. Also, as you can see, none of the dogs had a big interest in getting inside. And although my dogs wrap themselves up into a tight little ball when they sleep, I couldn't really convince any of them to give it a shot here. Luckily, I have 2 cats as well, and they seemed a little bit more agreeable to give it a shot. But as you may know, cats do everything on their own terms. So I think I'll just leave this by their cat tower and let them use it when they like. Overall, this was a fun little project to put together, and since I didn't spend a single penny, I can't complain about anything not going how I planned. I'm sure if I was willing to use some higher quality materials, I could get a much better result, but my pets have plenty of places to sleep, so for now I'm gonna hold off. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Until next time, thanks.